Hello everybody. In today's podcast and in a future podcast, we are going to develop the history of the Crusades, a brief history about what happened during this crucial time in history of the world, because we have the encounter of two great civilizations, the Christian civilization and the Islamic civilization, both armies in this case, two great religions fighting for holy places, for the Holy Land, and important religious sites for both religions. And today we are going to talk about the First Crusade that took place between 1095 and 1102 and the establishment of the Crusader states. And in future videos we will continue with the second, third, fourth, and fifth crusade and important events regarding the history. Now, regarding the First Crusade, let's start and let's mention how does that everything happened, how all this crazy thing took place within the Christian world, and how is that in the Christian world this kind of concept of holy war came to be developed, for which just by the word of the most important figure in the Christian world, the Pope, just because of his word, then thousands of men embark on a journey of months to a different land to encounter different people, different language, personalities, even Christians who practice a form of Christianity different from the one that is practiced in Europe up to this very day. And we will, let's say, look into all these details in this series of podcasts. First of all, the phenomenon of the Crusades was one that shocked the whole Christian and Muslim worlds as one. There was such euphoria in Europe when Pope Urban II launched the First Crusade at Clermont in the year 1095 that thousands of people joined the campaign without much questioning. They were possessed by the spirit of fighting in the name of the Lord, people who found an opportunity to actually do something useful with their lives in a divided European society. Why historians say this? Because at the time, many knights were wandering across Europe without no job, nothing to do, and we know that there's many men hanging around armed with swords and other military equipments and military training. They start pillaging and sacking and really behaving in a way that was not expected from the knights at the time. So, as you can imagine, they wanted to do something with their lives. And when the Pope said, oh, there will be this opportunity, because the Pope said he offered remission of sins for those that joined the campaign, and an opportunity that was too good to let pass when many knights wanted indeed to get reconciled with the church. And this was the mentality at the time of the Christian knights that decided to take arms and follow the call of the Pope and embark in this First Crusade in the year 1095. And like I was mentioning, there was a time in which many knights, and this is, we have to understand the set and the mentality of the medieval era, in which you could be a knight, but that is useful if you work for a lord. But if you have no service, I mean, you are not working for anyone, it's like there's no value. You need to work and make money and to eat, etc. And the medieval time was very hard. So a lot of these knights were wandering around, and they were attacking many towns and taking the money and raping and doing many things that were not really good. And the church was mad at them. So now the church said, oh, whoever goes on this crusade, I will offer remission of sins, and this person will go straight up to heaven. So they saw this as an adventure, and knights saw also the opportunity perhaps to get money and to get reconciled with the church. And besides that, they were Christian believers, so they saw, okay, well, this is a good opportunity to go straight to heaven. So we cannot generalize about the intentions of all the knights, and all different historians have been debating about the motives of these knights and the real motive of the church, and there were different opinions. I have just briefly mentioned different points that could be ascribed to different knights and different orders that were created in order to accomplish this First Crusade. There were several factors that propitiated the launching of the First Crusade, among them the call of help from the Byzantine Emperor Alexius I Comnenus of Constantinople. Constantinople, we have to remember, is the name of modern-day Istanbul, because in the old day, what is today Turkey, was the Byzantine Empire, which they were the heirs of the Roman Empire. And later on in time, the Turkish people, they conquered it and they changed everything and they named it Turkey, the land of the Turks. But at the time was the Byzantine Empire. It was a Christian empire, and it was the Roman Empire of the East. And Constantinople was the capital, and it was ruled by Alexius I. He was the emperor. He called himself the Roman Emperor. He was the representative of the Orthodox Christianity. Alexius had suffered many defeats and losses at the hands of the Seljuk Turks, who had taken all of Asia Minor from him and saw his stability and other territories threatened. So the emperor called upon the successor of Saint Peter in Rome, meaning the Pope, and his call was indeed answered. In his famous speech, the Pope proclaimed to a distinguished audience, and I quote, "For your brethren who live in the East are in urgent need of your help, and you must hasten to give them the aid which has often been promised them. For as most of you have heard, the Turks and the Arabs have attacked them and have conquered the territory of Romania, as far west as the shore of the Mediterranean and the Hellespont. They have occupied more and more of the lands of those Christians and have overcome them in 7 battles. They have killed and captured many and have destroyed the churches and have devastated the empire." This was the speech at the Council of Clermont in the year 1095. It was obvious then that Urban II was appealing to Christian sensibilities and making consciousness to the people of the imminent threat of the Islamic armies. Clearly, he pointed out to the conquered territories and the destruction of churches to reveal the brutality and barbarism of these people who did not even respect sacred religious places. This is how he pictured everything, and in reality these kind of things took place because this was a time of war. The Pope even called upon those present to persuade all people of whatever rank, foot soldiers and knights, poor and rich, to carry aid promptly to those Christians and to destroy, and I quote, "that evil race from the lands of our friends. Christ commands it." These were the words of the Pope at the time. Now, it was established, we have to say, that therefore it was established as a command from God himself to those present and absent to go and fight for their Christian brothers, which was equivalent to fight for Christianity. Moreover, rumors said that many pilgrims were attacked in their journeys to the Holy Land and Christian holy places in Jerusalem. It was then a moral responsibility of the Western Christian world to protect the pilgrims and Christianity's sacred places. With such appellation, it was very difficult to evade any responsibility in this foreseen conflict. The world was about to see one of the bloodiest wars in history. Among the fanatical devout that did not think twice and organized their own expedition to free Christian lands was a monk named Peter the Hermit. He led an expedition with thousands of men and women as followers that left Cologne, in what is today Germany, in April of the year 1096 and arrived at Constantinople by July as a stop in their pilgrimage to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. It is known, though, that in his way he was responsible for the attack, massacre, and destruction of Jewish communities, particularly the one in Mainz. The Jews, observant of a religion different than Christianity, were regarded by him also as enemies of God and therefore needed to be punished in any way possible. It seems, though, that the real reason was the negative of the Jewish community to finance Peter's expedition. Many important noblemen and powerful feudal houses also joined and financed the First Crusade. Among some of the most notable knights we could mention Ademar of Lepuy, Robert II of Flanders, Bohemond of Taranto, Raymond St. Giles, Godfrey of Bouillon, and Tancred of Lys. The nobleman the problem was that it was very difficult to, even with the support of important houses, to provision an army during the summer. This was one of the reasons they demanded funds from Jews and massacred them when the Jews refused to give them the money between the year 1096 and 1102. Now, the first battle during the First Crusade took place at Nicaea in the year 1097 with a victory for the Crusaders led by General Tatichius, a Byzantine commander. By July 1097, they engaged at the Battle of Dorylaeum, in which Bohemond, at the vanguard, engaged the Seljuk Turks led by Kilich Arslan, resulting in a victory for the Crusaders. The following year, by March 1098, Baldwin of Boulogne seized Edessa, and by June they had taken Antioch after a long siege. Perhaps their most important victory was the conquest of Jerusalem in the year 1099 from the Fatimids. You have to remember the Fatimid was the Islamic empire that was ruled from Egypt. And then these Crusaders, as I said, they conquered Jerusalem in the year 1099. They took it from the Fatimids. Before that, the Fatimids had taken it very briefly from the Persians. And before the Crusaders came, it was actually a couple of technically months that the Fatimids had power or hold over Jerusalem and this area. And immediately they were defeated by the Crusaders when the Crusaders got into the land in the year 1099. And we have the establishment of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. It was a Christian kingdom ruled by the Crusaders. So in general, the outcome of the First Crusade was a successful one because of many factors. Among them, it took by surprise the Islamic world. They could not have imagined the massive deployment of Christian troops and its swiftest rampage. The Muslim world was divided at the time between the Fatimid Caliphate, the Seljuk Turks, and the Abbasid Caliphate. It had been a long time since the last massive jihadi campaigns, and there was no initial preaching of it, meaning there was no a preaching call of in the Islamic world to go and face this Christian threat. Besides that, they were not united under a single caliph. It took them some time to react to the Crusaders and to counterattack in order to regain their lost lands. Now, as I mentioned, we have the establishment of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, and with it, the establishment of the Crusader states. After this initial victory for the Europeans, The Middle East saw the establishment of the Crusader states, with the Kingdom of Jerusalem being the most important one, founded by Godfrey of Bouillon. By the year 1118, many military orders were founded, being the most important that one of the Knights Templars, who were soldier monks at the service of the Pope of Rome, guaranteeing protection to pilgrims and the Christians established in the land. But it did not take long for the Muslims to react and start inflicting decisive defeats to the Franks, as these Crusaders were known, and with the fall of the county of Edessa, Edessa is a city located in Syria. With the fall of the county of Edessa in the year 1144 to the forces of Senji, the Atabeg of Mosul, a European reaction was expected. And indeed, Pope Eugenius III launched the Second Crusade in the year 1145. Now, I quote here from a distinguished scholar and historian, Andrew Jotinsky, that in his book, The Crusades and the Crusader States, the professor says the following: "It seems clear, however, that the preaching of the Crusade was a direct response to the crisis in the East, and that the initiative came initially from the East rather than from the papacy." Now, the Christians had to react quickly after this reaction from the Muslim world, since they were in danger of losing their conquered territories and the newly established states. And in the middle of all this turmoil, as I mentioned, we have the appearance and the establishment of the Second Crusade that took place between 1145 and 1150. But regarding the Second Crusade and what happened, we will talk more in detail in the next podcast. For now, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. As always, thank you so much. Don't forget to share this content if you find it useful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget that you can also look at the additional material that I've been publishing here regarding the Islamic religion and other topics, anthropology, ancient history, and more. Thank you so much, and we'll see each other in the next podcast.